Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to dig into something really cool, AI in agriculture.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
So we're talking about how this tech is changing, like literally changing the way we grow food, right?
It's a real revolution, and it's way beyond just robots planting seeds, though.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's definitely a thing.
When I think AI in farms, I'm thinking like tractors with GPS,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it goes so much deeper now.
So tell me, how is it deeper? What else is there?
Well, for centuries, farming was all about adapting to whatever Mother Nature threw your way, right? Farmers relied on experience passed down through generations.
Okay, well, we planted the carrots here last year, so hopefully.
Exactly. And then, we got GPS-guided tractors, automated irrigation, big leaps forward in precision.
Sure.
But they were still reactive.
Okay.
What's different now with AI is we're talking about being proactive.
Proactive, so instead of reacting to the weather,
You're anticipating it. You're getting ahead of it.
Wow. Okay, so it's like giving farms a brain that can analyze everything that's happening.
Precisely. And that brain thrives on data.
Data, yeah, because you've got sensors in the soil, drones mapping every inch of the field.
We're even talking satellites tracking weather patterns in crazy detail. It all comes together to give us this really comprehensive picture of what's happening.
So we've gone from relying on the last year's almanac to like a constant live feed of information about the farm.
It's incredible.
So how do we make sense of all that data, though?
That's where AI steps in.
Okay.
We're talking machine learning, deep learning. These are the real engines behind this revolution.
Okay.
These systems can find patterns and make connections in the data that would take humans,
Years.
Yeah, lifetimes probably. It's mind-blowing.
So instead of a farmer saying, this seems like a good spot for corn this year, AI can, analyze the soil, right?
Exactly. It can look at the soil composition, the microclimate, even predict, the optimal planting depth for each seed. And it's incredibly accurate.
How accurate are we talking?
I mean, we're talking crazy accuracy, like stuff that would make your jaw drop.
Give me a number.
All right. So there was this one study, right? They used machine learning to predict the best crop for specific soil conditions. They achieved an accuracy rate of 93.11%.
93.11%. So you're telling me, with that kind of certainty, AI can tell me if my land is better for lentils or barley before I even put a seed in the ground.
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
That's incredible. It's like AI is taking all the guesswork out of farming.
It really is.
And it's not just about increasing efficiency, right? This has to have a huge impact on sustainability, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you can use resources more precisely, water, fertilizer, pesticides, you minimize waste. And that means a smaller environmental impact, which is something we all care about.
Huge deal. But this all sounds super expensive. Is this something that only massive agricultural corporations can afford to use?
That's a really good question. And it's something a lot of people are asking right now. And the truth is, yeah, there are some hurdles. These technologies can be pricey to implement.
Right.
And, high-speed internet is essential for all this data to be transmitted. And not every farm, especially in more rural areas, has access to that.
Yeah, the internet is still a problem in a lot of places, even just like regular internet, let alone the super high-speed stuff you need to run all this.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's a learning curve.
Sure.
It takes time for people to adapt to using these new systems.
So access and training are major roadblocks, especially for smaller farms.
You hit the nail on the head.
So are there any solutions on the horizon? Like, how do we get this technology into the hands of the people who need it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But there are some promising developments. One thing that's really exciting is the push for more open-source AI platforms for agriculture.
Okay, so making the recipe for this AI stuff available to everyone.
Exactly. Open source has the potential to make it way easier and cheaper for smaller farms to use this technology.
That makes a lot of sense.
It could really level the playing field.
Okay, so open source is one solution.
Yeah, and there are others too. It's a really dynamic field right now. Lots of innovation happening.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be involved in agricultural technology, that's for sure.
So we've got these powerful AI tools, but how are they actually being used on farms today? Give me a real-world example.
Let's talk about crop prediction. Remember that study I mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
The one with the 93.11% accuracy?
Oh, yeah, that was impressive.
Well, that's not just some theoretical research project. That's technology that's being used right now to help farmers make smarter decisions about what to plant and where to plant it.
93.11% accuracy, that's wild. Imagine taking all the guesswork out of farming like that.
Right. It's like having a superpower.
And it's not just crops.
Oh.
Right, you mentioned rainfall too.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
But how can you predict something as unpredictable as, like, the weather? That seems impossible.
Well, it's not magic, it's AI.
Okay, but still,
It uses these things called artificial neural networks.
artificial neural networks.
Yeah, they basically learn from tons of past data to make predictions about the future.
So, like, instead of just looking out the window and seeing if it looks like rain, it's analyzing.
Decades, even centuries of climate data
Wow.
and current weather patterns, soil moisture, all kinds of factors that we know influence rainfall.
So it's like a crystal ball, but instead of magic, it's just
Data.
data. Okay, so it can tell you if it's going to rain, but what does that do for a farmer, like, practically speaking?
Well, knowing when to expect rainfall or when to expect a drought even, that's huge for a farmer.
Sure, makes sense.
They can adjust their planting schedules, change how they're irrigating, even choose different crops based on that information.
So it's not just reacting to the weather, it's getting ahead of it.
Exactly. It gives farmers so much more control.
That's incredible.
And it's especially important when you think about the big picture. Climate change, growing population, limited resources.
Right, we need to be smarter about how we're growing food.
Exactly. And AI gives us the tools to do that.
Okay, so we've talked about data, we've talked about prediction, but I have to be honest, when I think AI on farms, I'm still picturing robots.
And you're not wrong. Am I totally off base here?
Not at all. Robots are definitely a huge part of this revolution.
Okay, good.
But AI is so much bigger than just automation.
Okay, so how so? Like, give me an example.
Think about something like precision irrigation. That's all about making sure each plant gets the perfect amount of water exactly when it needs it.
Sounds efficient.
It's incredibly efficient. You've got sensors in the soil measuring moisture levels, and then the AI system looks at that data and figures out exactly how much water to give each plant.
So it takes into account what the plant type, the weather, the soil.
All of that. Even things like the slope of the land, the microclimate around the plant. It's incredibly precise.
It's like giving every plant its own personal hydration plan.
You got it.
And that saves water, which is obviously a good thing.
Huge for sustainability. And you know what else? It actually helps the plants thrive, so you end up with better yields. So it's good for the planet, good for the plants, and ultimately means more food for everyone.
Exactly.
This is all starting to sound pretty utopian. Like, are there any downsides at all?
Well, I wouldn't say it's all perfect. There are definitely challenges that come with this kind of technological shift.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it's a lot to learn. These systems can be complex, and it takes time for farmers to get up to speed on how to use them effectively.
Yeah, it's a steep learning curve for a lot of people, I imagine.
It is. And then there's the fact that the technology is constantly evolving, so there's this constant need to keep learning, to stay up to date.
Right, because you don't want to invest in a whole bunch of fancy equipment only to have it be obsolete next year.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the issue of data security. We're talking about massive amounts of data being collected and transmitted, and that raises all sorts of concerns.
So it's not just about teaching farmers how to use the technology, it's also about making sure their data is protected.
Absolutely, and that's something a lot of people are thinking about right now, how to make sure this technology is used responsibly and ethically.
It's a gold mine of information.
Right.
And not just about, like, how much corn you grew last year, but like the actual makeup of your soil, the weather patterns on your land.
That's valuable stuff.
Yeah, that's like the DNA of your farm, basically.
Exactly.
So who owns that data? Is it the farmer or is it the tech company that developed the AI system?
That's a huge question, and to be honest, there's not a simple answer right now.
It's like we're in this legal gray area.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The technology has moved faster than the regulations, which is something we see a lot with new tech.
So are there any safeguards in place to make sure farmers aren't taken advantage of?
Well, the good news is that people are starting to pay attention to this, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of discussion happening right now about data privacy and data ownership in agriculture.
Okay, good.
Some companies are even starting to give farmers more control over their data.
Oh, really? Like what?
Right. So some companies are letting farmers decide whether they want to share their data and with whom.
Makes sense.
And some are even exploring ways for farmers to monetize their data.
Whoa, so farmers could actually get paid for their data.
It's a possibility, yeah. Imagine a farmer being able to sell their data on, like, soil conditions to a fertilizer company.
That's wild. So instead of just being consumers of this technology, they could actually become producers of valuable data.
Exactly. It's a whole new way of thinking about the relationship between farmers and technology.
I like it. But we've got to be careful, right? Like, we don't want to create a whole new set of problems while we're trying to solve the old ones.
You're absolutely right. We need transparency, we need clear agreements, and we definitely need strong regulations to protect farmers' interests.
Because it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of all this new technology.
It is exciting, but we have to remember that technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right, so we need to make sure that AI in agriculture is used to benefit everyone, not just a select few.
100%. And that brings us to another big challenge: economic disparity.
Right, because if only the big agricultural corporations can afford this technology, then the little guy gets left behind.
Exactly. And that could lead to all sorts of problems, not just for small farms, but for our entire food system.
So how do we make sure that doesn't happen? How do we level the playing field?
Well, there's no easy answer, but I think it starts with making these technologies more accessible and affordable.
Okay, so like more open source platforms like we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And maybe government subsidies to help smaller farms adopt this technology. We could even explore new business models, like farming as a service, where farmers can access these tools on a subscription basis instead of having to make a huge upfront investment.
Right, so making it more like a pay-as-you-go kind of thing.
Exactly. We need to get creative and find solutions that work for everyone.
Because at the end of the day, we all need to eat.
That's the bottom line.
This has been a fascinating conversation. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic, though. There's so much more to explore.
Oh, absolutely. This field is constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn.
Well, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this. I have a feeling we'll be talking about AI in agriculture a lot more in the future.
I think you're right about that.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap things up for today. But for you, our listeners, keep those questions coming.
Yeah, and let us know what you're curious about when it comes to the future of food and technology.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into AI in agriculture. We'll catch you next time.